I feel like for me, the only way that you're going to get a positive result from a 1v1 session is if you're working on a specific swing. If you're working on your driver, you're working on your 4-iron, you're working on your 9-iron. Because there's moments in the game where each of these little skills, these little clubs are being used. Whether you got a little chip in behind the defensive line that you want to find a striker, or whether you're the center back that's going to be looking for the long ball for the left wing.
So I can agree with that. If, from that kind of standpoint, if the player is just starting off in football, they're 6, 5, 4, 7. One-on-ones probably do have a lot of worth in them because you're trying to teach the player these actions for the first time. Me, 14 years old, I need to develop this pass, isn't going online or picking up the phone and calling a coach and being like, yo, let me pay you $40. Come help me master this pass. No. I'm grabbing my ball. I'm going to the quickest, earliest, the closest open ground I can find, and I'm going to nail that ball 3,000 times until I can do it. And some would say, oh, you could pay for the knowledge and have the trainer there, and they'll teach you. Well, repetition in the action and spending that time with your own body and the ball is probably going to do you better in your future when you're talking about consistency of that action, because you went out there and you did it more and you did it by yourself. You learned how your brain needed to think about it in order to do it. You spend the time with the ball, so you created another level of mastery.
That's a very insightful way of looking at it, because like you would have to first of all know yourself properly, know that you're going to fail. You're going to make a lot of mistakes, especially if you don't know this action and you want to learn how to do this action. It's going to take a while.
Yeah, you got to reflect after each moment too.
No, and you I think
like
the
this.
only positive way,
just
like you said, if you're going to pay $40, $50 for the insight, you're going to hear from somebody that actually knows how to do it and learn this is step 1, this is step 2, this is step 3. This is a feeling that you're going to get, and this is a feeling you want to get from this action.
You know what's funny about that, though, is there's less confidence in self through that course of action and learning your coordinative actions. In my mind, in my opinion, the way that it goes is if I went out there and I did all of those reps and I worked through all those reflections on my own and I worked out that technique on my own, the confidence I have with that pass once I've learned it is much higher than it would have if I was taking in outside information and adjusting to that outside information. Realistically, I put it into terms of freestyle football, I guess. There's probably 3 or 4 different styles or ways to do the same trick. And the way that you were either influenced or taught to by an instructor, or the way that you practiced that trick over and over again, pushed you into a certain category of style. How you executed it. Was it wide-legged? Was it high-legged? Was it low hit? Was it high hit? That was actually created for me from all the time that I spent with the ball with 1 or 2 instructors. Shout out Alex and Umar. But those guys were like just actually letting me do my thing and tweak here, tweak there, but they weren't like step 1, step 2, step 3. It was repeat, repeat, repeat. And through that repetition, you're going to learn how to handle your body, and how to handle your body leads to perfect control of the ball.
And in that sense, you could even look at it as like a life lesson where you didn't have to have an external source pretty much guiding you in your own path. You're trying to figure it out on your own way, and you being able to do it on your own way means that you figure out for real by yourself, and then you know what you can and what you can't do, and from that then you can narrow it down.
You can also say I'm biased, I guess, a little bit towards doing the work on your own, but at the time it was because we didn't have the means to go and pay somebody to coach me on the side, like, no way, Jose, But if I could grab my ball and go out to the park, that was free. And not only that, it was a positive way to spend my time at that time in my life where it could have been doing a lot of other things. So it was a win-win in my category, and I'm biased towards spending the time on your own and learning with your own brain, because that's the means in which I had, and I was still able to accomplish what it is that people want from extra trainings, is to develop certain actions and understandings of the game more in depth. But I tell you this too, sometimes when somebody pays for that kind of service and the player isn't all on board, but the parent is, the player isn't all on board, so they're not dove into the commitment of learning process and learning what they are there to learn. sometimes they get nothing out of that. It's because the parent wants to have the kid or the player slotted training and to get better, but is the player bought into that? And so as they're learning that repetition of passes, do they care about the information they're receiving? Because I can tell you when I was alone on that park, every single hit I cared about. Every single one. Damn. I'm running down the line, working on my left-footed cross, and I shank it behind the net. Upset with myself. Why did that happen? It hits the outside of my foot in full stride. I maybe didn't plant close enough to the ball in motion. Like all of those things after each hit, I care. So I think about, and when I think about more control about the development, more understanding about the details and repetitions and why I'm doing what I'm doing.
And in that sense, I think it goes back to being intentional.
One-on-one
Like
trainings,
if
or
you're
train
going
on
to
your
be
own.
if you're going to be doing something, the only thing that the output that you're gonna get is what you actually put into it.
Mm-hmm.
So like even if you have a training session, let's say with 4 of your boys, or 5 of your boys, which isn't a big training session where you can make like a 7v7 or have a really competitive, you can make it competitive just by what you guys do inside the training session. I had one last week or over the weekend where I had 5 people out there. And when they were warming up, I was telling the boys, look, I know we only have 5 people out here. I know this isn't the best scenario that we could ask for, asking for, let's say, 15 players usually.
Yeah, of course, yeah. 15
But
to 18.
if we have 5 guys there, then let's make the most out of us 5 and make sure that us 5 of us are pushing each other to the maximum capability that we have.
Care and creation of context, obviously the two of those things will make a 5-player session great. If the context of the drills are well designed and everybody there is there to get better, that's going to be a great session. I remember whenever we get 5 players in, I jump in, we make it a 4v2 rondo, and we change the context to the rules of the game every 10 to 15 minutes. And that makes 90 minutes go by like this if all 6 guys are bought into winning this 15-minute game. In each 15 minutes, we change the rules on how you succeed in winning or losing, what you have to do as far as your objectives in recovery, what you have to do in your objectives of possession, and how that creates winners and losers with each round. And now, if you care and they care, well, now there's even more moments, and this will go back to touch on, rather than 1v1s, why group sessions are better. In that setting, all of those players are getting more out of that than any one-on-one setting going on. Why? They all care. Same thing. If he's there and he cares, same thing. But now there's more game-like scenarios of being press and recovery. There's press and possession. There's transitional moments. There's the more football-like. And
you're getting all the phases of the game.
And people say, well, you're talking about a rondo, coach. And I say, well, then do a pass sequence with extended things, with emulates that pass technique that you need them to do, and make it a sequence where no extra player is sitting waiting in line, that every player has to be in motion to receive the next one. Even if that means 2 balls are in motion in the same sequence in, flip reverse style. So it's like, for me, when you put players in a group and they're, like you said, they care, and you want to build that care in the pre-session like you did, and you have to also bring that energy, or else it's a no-go.
No,
They'll read right through
I
you.
can't tell them
They'll
to
read
care, and then me out here looking at my phone, snapping someone.
Balls,
no, get out of
you're
here.
running, grabbing balls, and you're on each moment. And players are making mistakes. And tell you what, when you have 5, 6 guys, that's easier to do than when you have 18. So now those one-on-one moments mean a lot more in those settings. Don't get me wrong, like, you have 18 players on the field, you should still be able to address one-on-one certain players. It just happens way less.
No, because you're focusing on the
collective.
whole group.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of stuff that goes on within the collective. That's why, honestly, I've had a lot of conversations about this, like what's better, one-on-one, group session. And it's, in my mind, there's so many reasons why group session places 1v1 down or further down the list. Except now I'm working with younger players, 6, 7, 8-year-olds. I see a lot of worth in 1v1 sessions at that age because they have so much to learn. Techniques of everything, dribbling, passing, shooting, all of it.
They got to get their clubs right,
Man, it's like opening up a book and it's 1,000 pages. You're looking like, oh, I think we could touch on any of these. It'd be good for them. So 1v1s in that setting is positive. I personally cannot do them. I don't have the attention span or the will or want, the passion to work with one guy. When I go out there, I like to work with a group of players. And within those, competitive matches, more game-like scenarios, I find coaching points a lot easier. There's that moment I'm going to touch on. There's that player situation that I need to express and get him to understand better. There's an action I can correct. Let's take a moment to correct it. But if I'm with the one player, it's like, there's an action I correct, there's an action I correct, there's an action I correct. I just started a gym workout with my high schoolers. It feels like that, like I'm correcting their form every time they pick up a weight to do a different thing. And I turn around, I got to correct their form, I got to correct their form, I got to correct their form. I don't like doing this too often. It's too, I'm going to use the word meticulous, and it's less game-like. So for those two reasons, already I'm like hesitant. People ask all the time too, you do one-on-ones, like give me your number, find time at the park. And now my response is, I don't, but I know a lot of coaches that do, and if you would like to be put in contact with them, I got you. But that's not something I do. My time is my most valuable currency beyond anything else on this planet, even money. And so when you put a group of players together, now that care, that passion, that excitement, it somewhere bubbles out of me, and then all the time becomes worth it at that.
Today, Monday, February 26th. What is this?
This is the 21st podcast. Welcome to Pitside Prospects. This is the 21st.
The 21 times we've said that already.
I'm excited about this because there was like a statistic I read that only 1% of podcasts make it to this. But also there's a part of me that's kind of like, well, nobody would even know because I've been really lazy as can be and haven't posted any of our last 9 podcasts or 8 podcasts that we've done.
It's more like 6, more like 6.
I am behind, but also very, very busy. So my thing, I'm still excited that we're doing it week to week because we're there. We're at the 1%. So now it's about like, okay, if that is the case, are we fine-tuning what this is to become or what it's becoming? And I think we definitely are.
And, I feel like also I'm not opposed to even bringing on coaches of different sports that have excelled in their own thing, because I think youth sports as a whole is not just about creating players or creating competitors. It's about building the next generation of people in this world and giving them good values, good morals, something that they can take away not just inside the sport, but in their lives in the future. I'm excited to be bringing on more coaches from different sports. Be ready for that. It's going to be coming in multiple episodes.
Yeah.
I've already got their contacts, already looking at them.
I'm sure there's definitely a ton of similarities that will derive just from raising the human character, right? Because that's what we do through the vehicle of sport. Is we're building better humans, and so that would be great. I'm all for that, especially since he's the guy who gets the guests. I'm not.
Today, we're going to be talking about something that we've already kind of brushed on a bit. We already talked about different styles of play, but now we're going to talk about formations in depth.
Yeah.
And about, there's characteristics that people want to be emulating or really embodying whenever they have the ball or whenever they don't have the ball. And we're going to be really delving into the details of it. I mean, as most people know, you've got the red and blue going through your veins. You're a Pep Guardiola disciple. Disciple.
Uh-huh.
Now you're going to be talking about the attacking phases of the game and what you feel are almost necessary when you have the ball.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is I wasn't always a disciple of positional possession. When I started my coaching career, I was working at Canyon High School, right? And I was working at Real SoCal. At that time, I played a 4-4-2 with a diamond in the middle. And it was not a flat line in the middle, but it was a flat back 4. It was 2 up top, like a 3-5-2 was, but it had a diamond sitting in the middle. And realistically, my 2 of the diamond on the wide areas were responsible, like left mids and right mids, but also were responsible for pinching in when the ball was on the opposite side. And for whatever reason, I've always enjoyed playing with a true 10. A 10, like, the Ozil said, like
James
that.
Rodriguez.
Yeah, give him the ball and give him the space and give him the freedom and watch him work. I like
that was my favorite formation in FIFA. One of my
4-4-2
favorites.
diamond.
Yeah.
No,
It's a really good one.
It's class. It's simple. When you need to get compact, you just literally drop the 10 in and fold flat. Bring your strikers back.
That's something that I'm going to be talking about later.
I could talk about how in most of my formations quickly, I avoid that as much as I can.
Avoid what specifically?
Flattening out into a double block deep in my own pitch. And this is at a fault. I avoid it to a fault, meaning that I need to get better at making my teams do this. But for me, I do it because soccer is more interesting when it's open. And when I force a game open, it forces the opponents open. So it's either one is condensed and one's trying to break it down, and this is a controlled game, or I'm going to pry open that door, and now the whole thing's going to be open. Because if I risk, you have to risk, and if you risk, I'm going to keep risking, and I'm going to keep the door open.
I got to beg to differ that, because imagine here, I guess since we're talking about it, I'll start bringing it up. I believe, and you could see Man City doing this now, you could see Arsenal doing it now. The 4-4-2, in my opinion, is the hardest formation to go against when you are attacking. Why?
To break down.
Because you have two people on the outside lanes, making sure that even if you have your fullback rushing up to help out your winger, it's still a 2v2 there.
Mm-hmm.
And you have two people in the middle that could easily become three if one of the nines drops in, and then you have a 3-for-3 man-for-man inside the midfield. You've got one striker, let's say if one of those strikers drops in, you have one striker going against two center backs, which for me is not a problem at all, because you're actually taking one of their players, or actually you're taking two of their players for only one of yours.
Mm-hmm.
And you still have your two center backs being nice, compact, inside the box, making sure that they're protecting.
It's too
their
situational
goalie.
for me. There's a much easier way to explain why the 4-4-2 is the hardest system to break down. And it's because when it's sitting in that space of the field, it covers the most amount of space while staying as condensed as possible. So what are you protecting? The goal. What do you need? 2 rows of 4 and 2 pressing players. Well, what if one gets broken? Then one of the ones from the line above settles in, and that's the press cover balance system, and the 2 lines never get broken down. What does this force? Over the top and long decisions, long shots, or if you're breaking in, condensified and quick touches.
No, it has to be super intricate passing to be able to actually beat that.
Even then, like coming from the FC Barcelona Residency Academy, when double blocks were set and we did quick, intricate passes in there, they still condensed to the point where we couldn't. So what was the concept? Oh, bring them back out, create the space in behind again, and now when we go back in, we have to be efficient when we go in, or else we won't be able to break them down like they just showed us. So if we're going to go quick touches, and we have possession, and they're condensed, let's draw them out. Let's draw them out as far as we can draw them out. Let's draw them out. Let's draw them out. And as soon as we see that lane of space that we've created by coming back with possession, it's like, boom, there it is. Ding, 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 bang. And if we don't do it like so, we won't break a double block down with quick, intricate passes, which is also then when I go back to say it kind of forces longer decisions, over-the-top decisions, and it can frustrate teams because breaking down a double block takes patience and awareness. But here's what I avoid the double block often because that kind of game bores me as a coach. And I said that. We had that argument at the state CIF final. What game is more interesting? Okay, this game, it goes 1-1, depends all the way through. I get it. Or a game that had 6 goals and may have been over by half because it was 4-0. Man, I understand where the beauty is if you prying open a team and risking it all and forcing that team to then open up as well, because there's more risk involved, more chance involved, and there's more attacking actions within the game.
Yeah, that's what you value. You value seeing some nice passes, some nice cut 1v1 duels. You value that. I value a team being actually organized and making sure that they're protecting the objective.
Yeah, no, I get this.
And it sounds like in that game that you saw, the 5-1, that you enjoyed more than the 1-1 that went to PKs. It sounded like there was one team that was clearly dominant in the attack, and the other team couldn't replicate the attacking force that the other team had.
Wrong. Both teams were proficient in attack. One team capitalized on the moments in which they created, and the other didn't. So there's a big difference in that, because with one team attacking like a landslide, that also can be boring. But what I'm talking about is a game where you pried open, and because you attacked, you opened yourself up. Now they attacked a little more, and they gave chances but miss them. This is an open game in my mind. We'll go back to the formations. It's like I played a 4-4-2 diamond in my first formation. Then I started becoming a disciple of the 4-3-3 at the time, but I hadn't switched over to it. It was what my Adonai Jovel ran with his club teams that I became an assistant for, and I started learning, okay, this system. But before that, I was a 3-5-2. So I went 4-4-2 diamond. But then when I was in an offensive mindset, it was 3-5-2. And I played with those two shapes up until 4-3-3 blew my life wide open. Like up until it took everything over, you know.
While we're talking about it, how about you break down the things that you enjoy the most about the 4-3-3 and
Sure.
what you love about it?
I've spent the most time with that system, for sure, without a doubt. I think the second the most is a 3-4-3, which is what I played this season, to a detriment, by the way. Whereas if you play a 3-4-3 and you're able to open up risk a lot, then once you've taken the lead, what I've learned this season is you need to then turn into a more condensed, simple structure. You cannot, you said it yourself, it won't last, it's too risky. Like, that's true. You can do 70 minutes at that, maybe 65. And if you get the better hand of the game, which usually you do if you're the aggressor, then you need to find a time to shift back in and settle that lead. But in the 4-3-3, there's reasons why I love it, is because the shape, unlike a 4-4-2, which is like blocks, the 4-3-3 is like a giant circle with pins in the middle of it. You can imagine, like, when you look at the whole coordinative space of a 4-3-3, you see a circle with a triangle right inside the circle. And people are like, what are you talking about? So there's a 4 line, and then there's a 3 line, and then you have 2 and 1. And if you were to draw a line around all of those players, it would make a circle. And, of course, we include the keepers, a little bit of a circle with a little nib.
Little dink in
little
it.
nib. But, for whatever reason, this, to me, makes sense, because what is the possessive concept? The possessive concept is to use all the given space. And so, in that shape, that was the first thing that sold me. That was like, oh, okay, those two things line up, makes sense. And then as I started practicing with the 4-3-3, we talked about it in prior podcasts before, player profiles become incredibly important.
No matter what formation you choose, because
it's the truth, yeah.
If X player can only play in, let's say, a 4-3-3, and then he goes to a 4-4-2 system, he's going to look awful. And he may be the best player in the 4-3-3, but then when he comes over here to the 4-4-2, it ain't clicking for him.
So as coaches, too, it can be hard, because we have set formations that we love, but we might not be given the pieces of the game to be able to put that system together. So we have to be able to adjust and adapt, just like the players have to if we move them into our system. Sometimes as coaches, we have to be aware enough to realize the system we love doesn't fit the people we got. So we got to change. So we got to meet somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
And that's what I had to do this season with the high school, and I'm totally okay with that. But in a 4-3-3, we'll go back to that. You need players at the top line that can be, I always say, like a 3-headed dragon. But the reality is that you need a striker that can hold down 2 center backs and be a target, like a real target. And not only that, more possessive than anything else. When he's in the attacking third, he has to always have an eye for goal. That's a hard thing to find, because
you're already asking about. You're asking for 3.
Listen, I
big
have
things.
one of them. I have one, though.
Yeah.
I have one in my high school, and he's a true striker, and I'm proud to say that more players should play like this young man, or how most strikers should. In this system, that's how I believe a striker should be. Be a target, pin your center backs, have an eye for goal in the attacking third. But if we're not in the attacking third, be more possessive than aggressive. That takes a conscious mind, right? To know in each situation what is the best course of action. Then the wingers have to be incredibly one-on-one proficient. Incredibly. But not just that, they have to be statistic mongers. And I say that because, like, the statement I always give my wingers is common, is like, get something out of it. If you haven't earned a throw, a corner kick, a foul, 20 yards in maintained possession, you haven't done anything. You've just been over there flaring about.
And you lost possession for us.
And don't get me wrong, in the 4-3-3, if there's anybody that has the right to, it's you. So I give the license to lose possession by trying to advance in 1v1s to those wingers. If you lose that possession trying to take that space at anybody on the team in this system or formation, I'm okay with it. There's also another, when you're teaching positional possession in a 4-3-3, there's another similar thing you tell your center backs, is I demand that we build out of the back and that every time that we have it, you're going to receive it and we're going to find the solution through this press every time. And they also, too, have the permission to lose possession in that process if they're trying to follow the breakout, finding the solutions. And I say at the beginning because as we approach 6 months into the season, you've seen me do it. I accept less and less and less.
No, and I think they also, especially in the 4-3-3, where you have very high intensity and very high risk moments as a center back, I think there's got to be a way that not only the center back has a solution for it, but his teammates also give him a solution for it. I like to call it the quarterback rollout. I don't know if you're aware with NFL, with football.
I am not.
But in football, sometimes a quarterback gets pressured inside of his pocket.
I've seen it.
And what does he have to do? He's got to move out to the outside space to try and give himself more time to find a pass. I like to use that reference inside where the center back has the ball. We had a player where he would find himself a lot in this situation where he would roll out to his right, and him being right-footed, what's the obvious solution?
Right.
Hit it in behind. Now, it's not helpful when his teammates aren't reacting to that action that he has. And for me, I absolutely despised seeing the rollout happen and him hitting the ball in behind and then no one reacting, no one being proactive to his action. Now, what would be the proactiveness to his action? I would say someone has to make a run. Or how about a double action where, let's say, if he's rolling out, the winger checks into the ball. Now he's either freed up his fullback or the fullback follows him, and now there's more space in behind where the 9 can actually go and attack that space.
So you know shadow play, right? Of
Yeah.
course. You put 2 teams on the half. One team's going to get all the reps. The build-out team in this situation that I'm describing is going to get all the reps. And the best course of action to improve your players' abilities in understanding sequences and options on the break is to run shadow play instances over and over again and start to highlight when they make mistakes or they got caught out or they got clamped or they got pinched, why and where, who didn't support when and where, and why that led to a loss of possession. But on also showing them in those moments where the solution was instead of what you had thought, and then running more reps. So like you said, you don't like the side rollout because it leads almost directly to that. But what if that player had done that 1, 2, 3 times, and then on the third time he was able to pull back, turn his keeper, plays keeper, the keeper plays left back.
And so
would you get out?
Why does that work? Because let's say me as the opposition, I've gotten used to
seeing the rollout.
Exactly, and you know where the ball's going to go. It's going to go that way. So when he does I'm going to hit it long, little chop back, and just like you said, now you can keep possession.
Yeah.
And because it worked the first couple of times where you actually found somebody and didn't just give up the ball, now the opposition's like, hey, now we got to adjust to this because it's going to happen every single time.
Adjustment in football is the name of the game. from moment to moment, from half to half, from game to game. That's the whole thing, right? And we'll go back to the 4-3-3 in the build-out situation I was explaining, and my center backs will be the players who touch the ball the most in this system and formation. 4-3-3, positional possession style. My center backs, like you were calling them, are quarterbacks. They have the ball like an extreme amount in this system. And not just that, they have to be the most situationally aware. So, and I'm talking about positional possession and building out. So if he's roll out and breaking out to the winger 3 times in a row, I'm probably on the sideline fuming. I'm probably fuming because that's not good enough for me. Okay, we say, well, what's the point of building out? To cross the half, go score a goal, to get forward, to all those things. Yeah. For me, the point of building out is also to be situationally aware, to develop your understanding of everything that's around you, to pick the best option, not just the option that works. That's the whole idea. We're trying to develop people who can be cognitively aware while they play. And so here's one thing that I always teach center backs is in that system and when we're building out is driving, having the courage to drive into the pocket of the 6, allowing the 6 to bank off and then create a 2v1 against the pressure that the 6 had originally while having that pressure on your back is a great way to condense the opponents, creating space in those areas that you want to exploit and then break it down with giving the winger more time and space when you find them. The idea of a pass, it's so basic. What is a pass supposed to do for anybody? What is it supposed to do?
To move the ball?
Sure. To move the opponent is what I would reply to that. But a pass is basic, more basic than that. The pass is literally just supposed to give your teammate an advantage of some sort. Whether it be time or space, it doesn't matter. But when you make a pass, the whole thing is that you're just trying to put somebody else in an advantage of some kind, of some sort. And the more that you give them time or space or a 1v1 right onto goal, whatever you want to call it. It's just time and space. There's just different situations based upon that generalization. Then they're going to have a better chance of succeeding on that through ball that we were just talking about when your player rolls out and finds it. Well, if your center back chose to drive, play it 1-2 with the 6, got it back, the opponent's condensed centrally, and then he found that, how much more time would your winger have when he received it?
See, but then for me, that's
like,
scary because 1-2, a 1-2 inside your defensive third.
With your center back out of position.
Scary.
But
scary moments.
What's scary about it when you have a numerical advantage?
Because one mess up pass and then
Sure,
you're opened up.
But you know me.
And
like,
these players aren't professionals, or it's not FIFA where when you press X, the pass is going to go directly to someone's feet.
But we train.
Or the field could also be a factor.
Happens though, right? Right decision, unlucky bounce. Or right decision, wrong execution. And I back the boys in the understanding that that was the right choice. The way that you went about executing the action, or the way that the action was interfered with, took away that advantage from you. But you should know that was it. That was it, and this is why it didn't happen. And we'll go back to that. Like, how much more are my players focused on passing and receiving throughout their sessions than most? So I'm hoping through that repetition, those little moments are handled with more perfection, more consistently. This is the hard part about positional possession teaching, but it's separate also from the 4-3-3 formation, because you could play a direct 4-3-3.
The QB rollout.
Really good.
The QB rollout.
I really direct channel playing 4-3-3s, or they have a top 3 headed dragon and a true 10. Those 4 guys, oh my God, you should be afraid of that
but
team.
your ideal. Let's talk
dangerous.
about the midfield now. In the 4-3-3, what is your ideal? Your ideal formation, or how do they shape up in the 4-3-3?
Oh, it's easy. You either have 2 10s or 2 6s, depending on the way that the opponents are handling their midfield, right?
So that's what changes your 4-3-3.
Some would say you have a true 8, right? That sits in between.
I'm not a fan of that because there's so much like confusion or dilemma between. Hey, what's in between an 8 and a 10?
No, it's very simple. My 10 has his freedom. If you're an 8, you don't.
Well, that sucks.
Yeah, it sucks. But like, somebody has to have the freedom, right? We say the 8 is the box-to-box guy. So in that system, he's got the freedom because the attacking mid has pressing roles and places he has to be. And well, no, when I play 2 6s, there's no 8, and the 10 is free to float, press where he wants, and we'll adjust to that with the 2-6s. The other chance of that is, okay, well, press is on, and we're doing really good on the press. The game's in their half. We want to keep it in their half. They're not very offensive when they're playing long ball. They're better when they get going and passing. Let's put a second 10 up, and let's just chop that at the bit. Let's not let that get started. So now we're pressing with 5, sometimes 6. The 6 stays in place, but we're pressing with 6, whether it be a fullback. Someone else is joining. And when we get to that point, we can try to cut them off from their starting point. And this is when the midfield, formationally wise, depending on the game, that's how I'm making that change.
Yeah, and I feel like even it depends on what you're, like what you said, what the opponent's doing. If they have a double 6 and you're pressing, you're not going to have a double 6 because then your 10 is going to be stuck with 2 players to mark.
But nobody talks about it because everyone talks in a 4-3-3 about the striker having to be such a target and a possessive-minded, but also goal scorer. The wingers having to be true wingers who are good
one-on-one, Neymar,
Center
Vini
backs
Jr.,
have to
Mbappe.
be quarterbacks, finding perfect passes. Everybody talks about the 6 having to be very possessive-minded, can never lose possession, making a perfect pass. Like, you know, the hardest part about 4-3-3 is coaching and getting the team to understand is when the fullbacks need to be in an offensive mindset and when they need to be in a defensive structural mindset. And that is the whole 4-3-3 changing of the game. People don't realize, but like what happens when your fullbacks join the attack, the numerical advantage in the offensive front, your own, becomes too much to deal with. If you don't attack with your fullbacks, even if you have talented players in there, they could be handled by a double block.
Oh, for sure. Because guess what? It's a 2v1. When you're a winger and you've got the right fullback and the right mid,
it's hard to disorganize a
you.
double block too. It's a very easy way to understand where you need to be and when. It's so basic. It's like if there's one guy missing, you fold one down and then you're flat again.
And then
so
even let's say let's say my team got a red card and I'm trying to keep a lead, I'm gonna go 4-4-1.
Right.
Because the basics of the double block are still there.
So at a fault, I failed to do that throughout the season. At a fault, right? Because I'm like 3-4-3. I'm winning 3-1, 2-2, 2-1, whatever it is. We're gonna keep going at them.
And that's where you and I differ. I like to be proactive to what the game is showing me. I don't just react to, now we're losing 3-2.
I've been doing it so long that I just keep it interesting sometimes, I guess. No, I went to my captain in reflection afterwards and was like, this is where we messed up. And he's like, yeah, that's where we messed up. And I'm like,
you're bad, coach.
I said that. I did. I said, I went back after the season ended. I watched a majority of our games in reflection now about like an overview. And I said straight to him, like, this is my bad. This is where we messed up.
I thought you would have learned from me, Zach. Come on, man.
It wasn't, listen, I'm still trying to explain why I did it, though. Even if I was given the chance to do it again, would I have changed is a question I can't answer. Because I love opening Pandora's box. I believe in my team's offensive abilities. I believe in my ability to express different natures of offensive actions that are necessary.
So you don't enjoy seeing some defensive prowess?
I do.
I bet in Italy they'd absolutely they'd kick you out instantly after you trying to play. They'd be like, "What is this guy doing? Why isn't he compact?" It'd kick you out instantly of Italy.
So that's what I said. When we were together, it was very healthy because we had both mindsets, and also we had players who celebrated tackles regularly. And that helps like energize the whole moment and what it's for. Like it's far off from what excites me in the game, but I recognize how necessary it is. So let's say, okay, next season, I probably won't make the same mistake. We probably will continue to open the game up right off the get-go. I will not let you sit in and play a controlled game in the first half. I'm going to put 8 bodies forward if you try to double block and build your way out. I'm going to open you up. And then at halftime, you're going to have to adjust to that. And now I know what I need to do in my second half if I've gone up. But I haven't. I just enjoy it so much to watch the players attack. And then because they attack and open up the spaces, forcing the opponents to attack.
You get opened up.
And then I open up.
And then you get punished.
No, hey, but listen. There's more moments of excitement in that game than there are in the controlled game. But I get that results are the outcome that most people are focused on. You know me, I'm on actions. I'm on moments. I'm on interventions. I'm on decision makings. I'm in positioning in particular moments. I'm in how did he hit the ball and when did he, and when the ball passes like beautiful, everything else melts away from the game, and I'm just like,
Yeah, don't get me
wow,
wrong. Don't get me
what a
wrong. Like when
beautiful
you see like
pass
a
that
pa
is.
pa 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 pa
Jesus,
pa, it's
nothing else matters in the moment.
I hate this word, but it's orgasmic. It's like, oh my gosh,
I'm like,
what did I just see? Did we just do that?
and you're like, okay, that's what I came here. Like, man, that's why I'm doing this. But again, like I say, to a fault, and I'm still learning, and so I'm adjusting to that learning. We'll go back to the 4-3-3 as I was addressing the fullbacks. Fullbacks in a 4-3-3, when you get them both high and you pin an opponent into their own half, and now you're just sitting there with your two center backs, your fullbacks in that attacking, shifting position, depending on where the ball is moving. And, dude, teams can't get out of that. When they boot it long, your two center backs are sitting there ready to just play it right back into the wide spaces, depending on where their fullback is. If the fullback drives, the winger could come in. If the fullback plays the winger, they could come in.
Yeah,
Things start to get really hard to stop.
it's
A
funny.
4-3-3 with fullbacks.
I asked this. Like, imagine I saw this video where this Argentinian coach was breaking down how he wants his team to play, and he was saying that the fullbacks, whenever the winger has the ball in a 1v1, he is always obligated to go and make it a 2v1.
Yeah.
And I think that is an excellent little concept to be practicing. But I asked my team, because we had so many overlaps during the season, I asked them, hey guys, give me one reason why the winger shouldn't play the overlap. And they were saying, oh, a bunch of stuff like that didn't make any sense. And I was like, exactly. Whenever the fullback is going, he has momentum. He is running, and the defender is waiting and trying to contain the winger. Why wouldn't you play the man that has momentum?
It's usually a selfish decision.
1,000%.
They see the runner go, and then they try to bait their defender in thinking they'll make the pass so they can create space for themselves to dribble in or shoot in that moment. And it never works, right? Because
because then someone else goes, and then
if I'm a fullback,
bam.
I'm not going to be baited until you actually pass the ball. Like, if you don't pass it off your foot, I'm with you.
Exactly. What are you gonna do? Follow the man or the ball? The
you.
ball. You want the ball.
And you said it best: is when that fullback overlaps and he's at full momentum, there is no reason to play it, or there is no reason not to play it to him. He should get that ball in that position. And if you really want it, after you play him, you could stay right where you are,
And you're
because
gonna have
your defender is
space,
going
and
to
you're
go
gonna
to
get
him.
it again.
You can get the repeated pass and do what you wanted, but you need to play the pass when people work to get into position and you don't play it. You've actually done a lot more damage than just that situational loss. That situational loss compounds into the transitional play afterward, and your position is out of place or disorganized because we didn't play that moment when we had it. Transition happened, and now we have two birds in an area where we should only have one, and the space is available where they are now coming. That's a double whammy.
And you just
That's not a single.
And you just sent your guy in a 50-yard run.
He's tired.
Full sprint. And what is he going to have to do? Go 50, 80 yards back to defend their goal? Awful.
Now, fullbacks hearing this will say, there's no way in a 4-3-3 I'm going to be attacking all day long. I'm not fit enough to do it. It's
Then get fit, boy.
Get fit enough to do it. Because then coaches are going to love you.
No manches.
They're going to sit there and watch you go up and down their line and be like, he's even doing what the winger should be doing sometimes. And he's here covering his back line. Like, dude, and you have a winger there. So let's say you do get ahead of him. Well, if you get ahead of him, it's kind of like a challenge button to say, well, if you're not coming to join me, go take care of my job. I'm already above you. I'm
exactly. I'm the winger now. What are you? You the fullback.
Right.
Go get.
Either make this a
protect
2v1 or cover this thing. And now I'm making the decision because I'm taking initiative. And the reason I'm diving into this is because everyone dives into the 6 in a 4-3-3. Everyone dives into the winger's player profile in a 4-3-3. Everybody dives into the center back's ability to possess and find the right passes in a 4-3-3. The truth in the matter is, against good teams playing a 4-3-3, you will only find that success when the whole team starts to understand the structure, and the structure is to condense in possession. Use their half in possession, and once we're there, now we can boom, boom. The connecting part of that is the fullbacks. Because think, when you take space as a winger and you run out of it and you're out of options, where's the first place you look? The person behind you. You cut, you go, where is he? Well, that player being there is the reason that you're able to then recirculate possession and find the next moment to attack. If he's not there, you have nothing in that situation. You are a winger that needs to then create something out of nothing. I was good at that because I played a 4-4-2 growing up in high school, and those fullbacks were designed not to leave at all. They played in that 4 line, and we were called left mids and right mids. And that meant we covered all of the responsibilities in front of them,
up and down,
and the person right behind us just defended. Whereas if we failed, they were our cover. But we weren't supposed to fail. We were supposed to cover the attacking and defending with everything in front of them in the offensive third and the midfield third. When it got to defensive work, sometimes, only sometimes, were we required to double down in the defensive third.
Now I'm going to go against you, and I'm going to talk about what, in my opinion, is the 4-3-3 killer.
The last thing I'll say on the 4-3-3
go ahead.
is we didn't mention it, is the 10. And not just being free-flowing and totally creative. Like, those, obviously, any kind of player like that in any position is going to do damage, right? The 10 has to recognize that he also acts as like a second striker in some positions, in some situations and moments. If the 10 isn't making vertical runs past the final line on a regular basis or distributing balls in a vertical manner across the final line on a regular basis, if he's not taking the ball in one way or the other, making that action happen.
Well, you said he's the one with the freedom.
Yeah.
He's the one that has the key to actually unlock the defense.
He can drive,
because if
he can
not,
pass, he can run.
If he's not doing it, what is he there for?
It doesn't matter which version of it is, whether he's passing it, driving it, or running himself to receive it past the final line. If he's not generating more actions to break that final line, making the center backs and fullbacks worry about him, they'll handle your three-headed dragon without any issue.
Because they usually have a 4.
It's a 4-back, and they're controlled, and nobody places their weakest players on their 4-back. Nobody does that. So it's because most people put their strongest on their top line. So nobody puts their weakest on their back line. So this is where, again, at 10, they always think I have to be creative, I have to score goals on myself, I have to create goal-scoring opportunities. That's true. But you could think about it more basically and say, well, if you're getting your team to break the final line more often, you're doing the role of a 10 in a 4-3-3. That's helpful. It makes everything more fluid. It makes the opponents worry about things too many things, caught between too many responsibilities. That opens up a team as well. Without all of those pieces, you say it's complex to teach a 4-3-3. It is. It is. But when it's run right, when it's done well, it's one of the most entertaining formations to watch. And you can see that reflected in world football and some of the best teams when they played it. And nowadays we've changed. You go to the World Cup now, and we talked about it, you see 5-back systems, right? It's all 5-backs.
Well, before I talk about the 4-3-3 killer, I think especially in cup tournaments.
Are you going to say that 4-2-3-1?
The one. Because I think
got an argument against that.
I think that in its own sense is a 4-3-3. But anyway,
it is.
But anyway,
it is.
I believe that when you're in a cup competition and you're just trying to fight to live another day, if you're defensively sound, then you have a chance to at least go to penalty kicks.
Yep.
So even if you guys cannot score to save your life, even if you haven't scored, well, you got to score in the group stages to get out. But once you get into the knockout stages, if you score 0 goals, but you concede 0 goals, you got a chance to win the World Cup or to win the Euros or whatever trophy you're going for.
That's true.
So that's why I feel like, especially in those knockout tournaments, defense, and just like they say, defense wins championships, baby.
I think I would be really, really accepted in Netherlands. I'd be highly accepted in Netherlands for the way that I view football, because I know that to be true. That does not mean that's the kind of person in football that I want to embody or represent, because I know that to be true. The defense wins championships.
And that's not even, and it's crazy, it's not even just in soccer, it's in other sports
too. It's everywhere across the board. but my brain is reciprocal. It's like a devil's advocate. If that's the case, if defense wins championships, then a good offense can beat that defensive championship. If I have a team that can break down your good defense and I have better offense, I can too win. And so, okay, defense wins championships. Well, good offense wins championships too if I could beat that defense.
Give me an example.
I'll give you what Johan would say.
No, like, give me an example of that happening in real life. Because let's see. Even though Argentina-France 3-3 final, Argentina against Croatia in the semifinal didn't concede. Against Netherlands, they conceded 2 times in like the dying minutes. And then against Australia, they only conceded once, if I am not mistaken.
I'm thinking about the high school games we watched this week. And the second one on Friday we watched could somewhat be in that regard if the team that won had a better offense throughout the game. They outplayed their opponent, the team that won, throughout the whole course of it. But you couldn't say that their offense was extremely, proficient.
No, I don't even think either team's offense was
but
really...
if theirs were in that game could be defined as such that team was playing a good defensive team, and defense wins championships. It's 0-0, and this little bit of offensive force led to a win instead of a loss.
You know what's funny is that team that won throughout the whole knockout stage, I don't think they conceded more than 1 goal.
Right, it was 1-0
in every game.
across the board.
1-0, 1-0, and they were knocking out the top seed.
Right.
They were knocking out the number 4.
So I guess there are situations in which this does occur. Like when you see teams score wonderful goals and win. I mean, what was the World Cup final this past one?
It was 3-3.
4-3, right? No, 3-3,
No, 3-3
and then
in
go to
pens.
pens. But this was like a shootout. Though both those defenses are good, really, really good. But the game was opened up. And from that moment on, it was more about offense than it was about defense. But what about Emi Martinez's foot save in the last moment?
And the moments in second half in the extra time when Argentina could have won up 4-3.
But who expects Mbappe to also score 2 goals in 4 minutes? Like, both sides of this coin are just as equally as important as the other. No side is worth more than the other. But because of the way that you express it, like, well, we could tie and defend well and make it to a championship, but we can...
Wasn't that Greece 2004 in the Euros?
This is true. This is 100% true. And the flip side of that coin isn't. We can't just kill it at offense all the way through the tournament and expect to be in a final.
No, and
it doesn't work like that.
And my example for that is Liverpool 2017, 2018. When they had Coutinho, Mane, Salah, Firmino. Yeah. They had those front 4, and there was a statistic that I will always remember, and it was Liverpool with Coutinho and Liverpool without Coutinho.
Oh, yeah.
Our points per game with Coutinho was actually less than without Coutinho. And you'd think, well, we lost our best 10. How could we have less points? Because we're more sound defensively.
Yeah, I think also more balanced in your offense. It wasn't just going through Coutinho. It was attaching itself to different areas of your offensive field. That led to more chances because you were more coordinative.
And also with Coutinho leaving, you had Van Dijk coming in, so it's a more defensively sound team.
It's more coordinated, so they have more time with the ball to attack. So this is, I don't know, it can always be debated in a sense because, like, I play a 3-4-3 this season, and I do it because teams just can't get away with defending against 7 for 40, 45 minutes right off the bat.
No, and I would even feel like
defending with 7, I'm attacking with 7.
An opposition coach it would be difficult for him to actually identify the formation because of all of the components that you have. They can just see a 3 in the back.
And we go. Yeah, that's all they get to see.
They only get to see 3, but they don't know where this guy would. It'd be hard.
It's
to figure out.
For the first half, it's a very successful formation. I haven't had any issues with it
until the second half.
You're right.
Until the adjustments come.
Well, until the adjustments come, because depth of any formation is serious. Having depth in your positions is serious because players at this age won't make it 90 without a mistake. It doesn't happen.
No,
the
you
energy,
gotta be
the
like
brain,
a D1 player. And even then,
they're kids. They're learning. It doesn't happen. If it does, it's rare. So you have to have depth, and you have to have confidence with the depth. The depth has to be confident in itself, and so you get through that how do you say, second half with that second wind, but wouldn't have that second wind. Like, arguably, my team could have been a full force offensive machine if we had just a few more offensive machines. And then I would have never had to take my foot off the pedal 60th minute, 70th minute. We could have played.
But you're banking on the fact that you're going to score
pedal to the metal
multiple
yes,
goals,
I am.
and then you're just going to do. What happens
Yes, I am.
when you score multiple goals, the other team gets demoralized, like, it's done.
Yeah.
These guys are way too good.
Yeah.
For me, especially when you have a team that has better individuals than, let's say, your team, I think the killer, the 4-3-3, is a 3-5-2. If you look at what the 3-5-2 is versus the 4-3-3, you're going man for man. You've got 3 attackers versus 3 defenders. You've got 4 attackers versus your 4 back line, and you've got the 3 in the midfield.
You're happy with your 3 in the back facing my 3-headed dragon all day? 1v1?
If, and like I said, if I know my team individually is good, and you were talking about
defense wins championships.
If you were talking about the characteristics of your team, I need to know that my 3 in the back are sound 1v1 defenders.
Yep.
Because if they can't handle the 1v1, if they get beat, let's say 6 or even 7 times out of 10, let's even break it down. 5 times out of 10, they're going to be getting in behind, and now we're coming in.
2 out of 5 for me is enough. If I attacked 5 times and my boy got behind you twice,
it's danger.
I'm happy.
It's danger.
And now we're in a day where I'm looking at this for 80 minutes. We're going to look at these 1v1s across the final line, where's where I want to be anyway, with 1v1. So I think in any phase of the game centrally, or even in my defensive third, obviously, a 3-5-2 sits really well against a 4-3-3.
Especially when let's say a coach like you really likes to play out and play intricate passes. One of those passes gets jumped, and we are in it. We have a +1 advantage, especially with the person that just jumped the pass.
But right past your line of 5 is where you're really, really vulnerable.
Oh, yeah.
And my wingers in a 4-3-3 are, generally speaking, my top one-on-one dogs. So in systems where I'm playing 4-3-3 versus 3-5-2, or even this year 3-4-3 versus the 3-5-2, it still gives me the 3 against that back 3. It still gives me the one-on-ones. And what we try to do is force the fear into those high and wide zones. Why we're doing that is because we're trying to force the 3-5-2's wingbacks to sit in instead of step higher. When those wingbacks in the 3-5-2 step higher against the 4-3-3, it's all bad.
It's all bad. Like, I bet you like that because it gets opened up.
Yeah, well,
and that's exactly what you like.
It does, but the problem with that is, like you were saying, you were looking for winning the ball in press situations. And if your wingbacks can make their way all the way up into my half and engage in press situations, and you're cutting me off at the bit and I can't get the ball rolling and started, that's when 3-5-2s change the whole thing. Because, like, if I can't get the ball rolling and out of this position, we're never even going to get the place to get our wingers to feel threatening.
The 1v1s are non-existent.
And then the more time that continues, the more confident the 3-5-2 feels in stepping into your space, giving the high and wide zones away. But if we're not finding them, what does that matter to them? So this is why I say is exploiting those 1v1s early and making the 3-5-2 team fear my wingers is one of the first steps in a 4-3-3 versus a 3-5-2 for me. Because then the wingback who's in front of that center back, wide center back, starts to get like, do I coach, do I stay? That's a problem. Do I go?
Another thing that I love
about... Does the coach say, you stay high? Oh, great.
The other thing that I love about the 3-5-2 is that it's so versatile. And obviously any formation can be versatile.
3-5-2 is extremely...
What I love, it can become a 3-6-1.
Yep.
Or a 3-4-2-1, as some would say, when you just drop one of the 9s into the 10. I had I like to say, a tactical battle victory when the first time that I played against this certain team, we had only 3 men in the midfield. And it was easy for their 1-6 to go against our 1-10 because our 2 9s were staying up high, and now it's a man for man in the midfield. The adjustment that I made in the second time we played against them was one of the 9s drops in as a 10, and now the 6 doesn't have doesn't know whether do I go with this guy or this guy because
That's the dilemma, right?
it's problem.
Yep.
Now
This is
he's going to 2v1.
Yep.
And actually, we scored our first goal of that game from one of the 10s receiving the ball, then 6 trying to cover him, the 10 taking the space that the 6 took, pass from 10 to 10, shot, finish. And I saw that, I was like, damn, dub for me. Tactics-wise, I just beat the other coach. And there's so many different little intricacies that I can do. Let's say if you play the right center back in your 4-3-3. Now I've instructed my wing backs, instead of being attached to your fullback, I've instructed them, look, once they play one side, we got to cut off the opposite side, but now we shift into a 4-back. Meaning the opposite wing back now can tuck in and become, let's say, a right back, and now it's not just a man for man in the top third.
But there's always adjustments to be considering. So, like, if you were an offensive 3-5-2 and you were pushing into my space, I would double pivot my 6s instead of double 10ing. Obviously, so I can give myself one other option and solution out.
But then I could also,
of course, but
do the same
other
thing.
Side of it is, if I'm offensive and I am getting out of that press, then I'm going to put 2 10s on, because as you pinch this way, my out is through the opposite 10, who stays high and in that weird central zone. As we play my right center back, he stays over there with his high and wide winger, and he's just in the pocket where he can connect this tough pressure play to that winger high and wide. And he stays in the opposite 10 position so that everybody's facing that way. The pressure's coming this way. Nobody's thinking about this guy. Your 6s, he's probably thinking about him, but he's definitely not with him, because that would keep him out of position. And then you guys here are pressing in. Your wing back could be thinking about him, but then that develops this.
He's too far away.
So this is where, if we can find him in that scenario, you're screwed, because that is going to put, as long as this guy, when he gets it, knows that the next thing is it goes again. Like, he has no selfishness in this moment. He has to then turn, pivot, and keep that going and then join it. Or if he chooses to go and he attracts pressure, then he's got to play it once the pressure comes. He has no selfish intent in that moment. And then now we've exploited you again, high and wide in the 1v1 spaces. And is that going to give me more space to build out? Even if it does, now I'm going to take that double pivot 6 and maybe push him higher and keep that 10 now in that pocket. Maybe that keeps your pressure from getting too hard and too intense now, because you're worried about this one, the connecting piece. Now my 6 is able to connect into those pockets. So this is the game, right? It's about always adjusting into those intricacies and what you're seeing, the people shifting, adjusting, adapting, and how your outs are successfully working where they aren't. And then finding a way to get the players to see it while they're in their little tunnel vision modes, like while they're playing, and their brains are so, excited that it's hard to comprehend certain things of that depth.
I think that brings up a point where one of the main things that I told my assistant coach this season was, look, your job, first 5-10 minutes, identify what they're doing. It's easier for us to give us, or to find a solution if we know what the problem that we're facing is. Because if you don't know what the problem that you're facing is, then you're in step one. You don't even know.
You're playing in dark. You have no information you're going off of. You're making adjustments to what? And
one of the toughest games that we had, we totally forgot to identify what the other team's formation was.
Yeah, I remember.
And then we're at the end of the game.
You said all the intensity at the beginning blocked you guys from focusing on that.
And we're at the end of the game, and it's like, dang, what formation did they play? I couldn't even tell you.
Right.
I just knew that these guys were here.
That we had a problem in this area.
Exactly.
And we didn't know what that was, but that it was there. And so, no, absolutely. Identifying the opponent's structure is usually number one.
Because, like you said, each formation has their weaknesses. You already know my weakness in the 3-5-2 is the 1v1s on the outside.
My brain just does that, how do you say, subconsciously. When I walk onto the field and I hear the beginning whistle, immediately my brain is like, all right, let's watch what they do. Because, like, I've set up my team. I know what they're going to be trying to accomplish. I know where the people are going to be playing. I know what to expect from a successes and failures standpoint. Whether they have an extremely good game or a really bad game is based upon, a bit of my expectations and my understandings of where they are. And so all of that is understood as I start the match. So it's simple for me. As long as I remember to start my watch, that's one thing I always do. Right?
Tell me
It's
about
like, once I've done that, my brain is totally and solely on them and watching how my boys like adjust to them, but like watching
But
them.
that's what the beauty of having an assistant is. I can be focused on just my team, and he can be the other brain focusing on what they're doing. So now we get the best of both worlds.
It depends on the assistant. Like when I had you, I could trust for sure. I have a goalkeeper coach from my assistant now who maybe isn't focused on those kinds of things. They're more able to see it in depth. And so sometimes when you talk about priority of information gathering, that's high up on the list in each game. So if I don't have somebody there to do it, it's a necessity for me to focus on right away. But I only spend about 10 to 15 minutes doing it.
That's another podcast topic right there.
Yeah.
Priority of information in the game.
Oh, very smart. Prioritizing the information on what you're looking
write
for,
that
when
down.
you're looking for it. How are you prioritizing what is important, what isn't, is very impactful to decision making. And we all know decision making is one of the pinnacles of being a good or a great. Not just your coordinative ability with the ball.
Not just your ability
How
of
you
what you
think,
can do.
when you execute, why you did it. That's like more than half the game in my mind. You know, people in the gym, they say like it's all about consistency, working out twice a day, making sure you have your rest days, all that. And then they'll double back with you and say, oh, but 60% of it's in the kitchen. So they dive into all the detail, what it is to be a good lifter and the framework of all the proper techniques and your form. And then they smack you with the number one important one, which is, well, if you're not in the kitchen eating properly and macromanaging your diet, this is all useless.
Literally useless. And it goes back to what Tori was saying. Like, you could be the best player on your team, but if you don't have those connections with people that could take you to the next level, then does it really matter?
No, it's going to be really hard to find yourself in that setting without that. And we said football is a small world. Building the connections is about being personable and getting out there. And remember at the game,
how small the world was on Friday.
We went to a game
gosh.
Friday night, and before we could even watch the game, it was like 15 minutes in.
Hey, how you doing?
Hello. Coaches of all
kinds.
Hey, this
is that.
And that's tough, man, because we went there to watch the game, so we miss out on it. But it's important too, because football is a small world, and those relationships will last in a sense. Whether they go well or they go poorly, they're still going to last because you're both going to be in football, and it's a small niche. So you have to find a way to understand, to find an ability or a way to comprehend or understand other people's ways of being and thinking, even if you disagree, but still be very, very strong about your own beliefs and how you feel and what you think. And that's a tough little ball game, especially being a young man in an old man's playing court, you know? Because realistically, coaching young men.
You're not 30 yet, you know?
Yep. I got 1 month, baby. I got 1 month. Every time I think about it, too, I slowly sink, and I'm like, no, we're not doing that right now.
You know, we didn't get into rest defense and rest attack, but I feel like that is something that could be way easier to show on a board instead of like verbally trying to explain it, because it's something that it's a tough concept.
Yeah.
But I think this is a really good
it was a great episode
to get more insight about you as a coach, get a little bit more insight about me and what I think about, and what has this been?
I would say the only thing, this has been Pitside Prospects, because at the heart of playing is enjoyment. And when do you enjoy? When you have the ball or when you don't? You usually enjoy more when you have it. Although there are those who love to defend with like a
I think it's about the frame.
passion.
It's about the frame, because we had the championship this weekend, and one of my boys made an immense tackle, and you just hear me go,
you can
Ryan
say that.
Gate!
Yeah, but you can say that.
And he just gets up and he's like, that's Ryan Gate, coach. That's Ryan Gate.
It's interesting because you put a group of 7-year-olds in front of you and you put a bunch of balls in front of them, one each, and how many of them would run past their ball to go take it from another? Rather than grab the ball
almost
and
nobody.
go.
Almost nobody.
And that's why I say what I say. And that's why Johan says what he says, because it's the core of the human spirit. Not necessarily the game or its details, the core of the human spirit is the enjoyment comes when we have the ball, the attention's on us, we get to decide, and there's creativity and all that built into it. And
But then I see the converse of it.
yeah,
My
devil's
my
advocate
frame my
in the reversal.
framing of how awesome, how fun it is to get in, not be afraid. That can also be an enjoyment that obviously everyone wants to have the ball. But if you're going to have moments where you don't have the ball, let's make it
Them
enjoying as
enjoyable.
well.
Yeah, no,
Let's
I
make
get
it
that.
enjoying as well.
No, 100%, 100%. I just, if I can, we'll frame it in a way for my teams where we're always going to have the ball, we're always going to attack. And we'll speak in terms like that. We'll develop in ways like that. We'll pressure in ways like
Well,
that.
even when I don't have the ball, I could also frame not having the ball as attacking against the ball. And that's something that Jesse Marsh,
But listen,
when I saw him,
you played, I played.
was talking about it.
Yeah, sure, but you played and I played. And when we don't have the ball and we have to run and shift and grab new players and shift to the, I'm sorry, but that's hard. It's hard
Yeah, it's
work.
tough.
It's hard work, and it's not always fun.
And that's where the framing of the coach has to come in. We're like, guys, this is discipline. This is what we want, and this is what we do when
There's
we
some
actually
characters.
earn the ball.
There's some characters that
You
love
see,
this.
you see the most points in La Liga was Jose Mourinho's side, the counter-attacking prowess that was Di Maria, Ronaldo, all these players, and they were attacking against the ball a lot.
Yeah.
But then once they had the ball, they were 1,000 miles an hour going.
I will also say this: whatever your team, your coach needs you to do, you do with passion, right? Like we talked about it on the podcast before. I played left winger my freshman year. We won everything in my college, and my favorite part of the game is driving at a fullback at full speed. I loved it. But then sophomore year in college, I got moved to man marker at 6 and had to just chase the best player. Run, cover, tackle. I did it. We won a lot because I did it. So I accepted that role. We talk about enjoyment and people, everybody's different in enjoyment factors. My enjoyment comes from the moment that I have the ball and I'm able to decide on the next current action. But the beauty of that is, in the same, when I was playing 6 in man marking, I too could still decide on the next current action. The action just came from me tackling before I decided what I was going to do with the ball. In fact, the pinnacle was me tackling. Okay, what's the big action? Is how am I going to tackle this guy to get him to release the ball? Then I got the ball and everything fell fluid into place because I do that. I do that all the time. And you got the ball. Like, give me the ball. Yeah, but I had to focus in on enjoyment of the defending action because coach needed to see that I was happy doing the role that he put me in so that I can continue to own the role and start there. But I had to do it well too.
Of course.
So I had to steal the ball.
So
it's hard.
It's hard
work.
Where can people find more stories about your tackling, your beautiful tackling?
My tackling is not beautiful. It's ugly as can be, but it's there. My foot is in. So you can find me at CJ Kaizen on Instagram or at Train Zone Sports on Instagram. We have some big things coming up. We're talking about like group sessions versus individuals, and we have some other things where we're working on different names and products and branding. So keep your eye out for those things on their way up the chute. And besides that, what about you?
Find me at Coach JCKM. Finally went viral for the first time. It 500K views on a video.
Yeah, that was when you said that. I was like, wait, how many? I was like,
500.
We were talking about thousands like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, for real. No, but what I'm enjoying too is that like I don't want to be pompous, but like I haven't had a miss yet. Like all my videos at least.
You had one miss.
What? Which one?
It just had to be removed.
Which one?
The one that you had to take off.
Oh.
It's a miss.
It wasn't a miss though, but the video wasn't a miss. It had 3K views like in a couple hours.
Okay, got it.
So like, I'm glad that all my videos have gotten at least 1,000 views. You know, I'd be a little demoralizing if I was working on something and I didn't reap the benefits of what I sowed or what I thought I sowed. So I appreciate all the support you guys are giving me, and my personal is at JCCrewRM. But this
has been Pitchside Prospects, and we hope to see you next week for episode 22.
Deuces.